Coach, it's great to be able to feature you in Tuscaloosa. I hope all is well.
It's going great, and I hope you're staying safe as everybody is. And Ryan, I really appreciate you reaching out and thinking about it. Thanks.
Absolutely. And, I mentioned yesterday that I was going to have you on today, and I started getting text messages. You've still got a lot of great connections here in Tuscaloosa, and pretty much everybody said, tell him hi for us. And you've still got a lot of friends here in T-Town.
Well, it's one of the greatest places I've ever been, and it was really kind of exciting just hearing that call right there of touchdown Alabama.
Sure.
I'm not sure it gets any better than that, but no, the people my wife and I have met and the friends and really longtime friends and forever friends. Those are 4 years I'll cherish forever.
Coach, I'm curious, what are you able to do from a football stand right now? What's a daily routine for Coach Jim McElwain?
Well, I got to tell you, I really we've from the start of this, our state was one of the first states to kind of close the doors and send everybody home, and so I've got great coaches. I've got great people within the organization, and actually I feel in some ways we've actually gotten ahead in some areas. We obviously it's a daily staff meeting. We were able to. We were fortunate. We had 10 practice days in before this thing hit.
Oh, wow.
We went early, and so our meetings, our Zoom meetings, with the team, with the offense and defensive groups, and then obviously the individual position groups. We carried those forward. Our guys are on finals right now, so we've relaxed that a little bit. But we were able to do a lot of meetings with people throughout every week. Our recruiting has been something that's been obviously really different, and yet I credit our recruiting staff done an outstanding job of putting virtual junior days together where parents and players are able to see what it is to be a Chippewa, and then of course you sit up here all day and talk to as many recruits as you can, whether it's on Zoom or FaceTime, and it's amazing the work you can actually get done remotely. I would have never guessed it.
Well, Coach, when you look at preparing for the upcoming season, if you take away 7-on-7 drills that usually happen between this time and also in the month of June leading into fall camp, if you're not able to do that, how do you think that will impact the game, the way you guys play, or maybe any other college will be able to play?
Well, here's what I think, everybody kind of realizes. Everybody's in the same boat. I think as long as we do all this together, I really think some of the coaches that have been in it a long time, there was a time actually where your kids actually went home for the summer and then they came back and got in shape during fall camp, and you went to play, and I think we might be headed in that direction, and so you've got to really look at that piece, kind of how you used to do it back before everybody's getting their summer school paid for and they're spending the whole year round with their strength and conditioning staff. I think we're going to find out, just what kind of teams come back in shape, and how much are the guys really invested in themselves, through the things they're given through the strength and conditioning at the places they're at. So, be honest, I'm not really that concerned about any of that, as long as, we do all of college football all kind of comes together and does the same thing.
We were talking with one of your former quarterbacks yesterday, John Parker Wilson, here on the show, and I threw up a question.
Tell me how John Parker's doing.
He's doing great. He's doing great.
I got to tell you, one of the toughest guys I've ever coached in my life. Some of the shots he would take and stand in there, wow. I felt there for a while I was going to get an abuse charge.
Sure.
He's got to get rid of the ball every now and then, right? But, wow, that's great to hear.
Well, and we were talking with him, and we were asking him, well, from a quarterback perspective, would you expect that you have to simplify some of the offense? And maybe I'll throw this question to you, being an offensive minded that you are, do you feel like that the offense will be simple, or do you think you'll be able to get everything installed? Now, you were a little bit different because you got 10 spring practices in,
Right.
but the others that didn't get any in, do you feel like offenses will be simplified, or do you feel like you have to do that?
Well, I think I think we simplified it based on some of the rules that are out there. Actually,
Okay.
With the RPO game now. Getting the coordination together, reading the key, getting the ball out when the guy moves or doesn't move, and all that kind of stuff, whether it's first, second, or third level reads and those type of things. But I think in some ways we've actually cut the field down a little bit for quarterbacks in what we're asking them to do. And yet I think the biggest piece is going to be, and you hit on it a little bit, with maybe the lack of some of the just timing things that you get over the summer, in your 7-on-7 and your player run OTAs. I think that's going to be one of the things. And then the other thing I think is going to be a little limiting if it heads to, a fall camp situation is your new incomers, your guys that were coming into your program, you were able to get them, early in the summer and kind of put them through an 8-week piece of familiarity with your system. I think some of those guys, it's going to be tough on them to jump in and pick it up right away.
Coach, I reached out to not only John Parker, but A.J. Mccarron this morning. Him and I exchanged quite a bit of text. And I said, give me a question. Give me something I can ask Coach Jim McElwain about, coaching or something. Both of them responded the same way, and we were not on a group message, and pretty much it was, tell Coach I love him, tell him we should have thrown the football more.
I get that quite a bit, but I tell you what, we had some pretty good guys to hand it to.
Sure.
For both guys, I tell you what, just what a great group I was able to coach when I was there, and here's the one thing I think, you take your personnel, and I think Coach Saban does this better than anybody around, is you play to the strengths of the people you have in your program, and more than anything, you got a great defense. There's a way to play field position football. Sometimes if you've got those weapons and more weapons on offense, you may need to play a little more up-tempo track and field, and score more points. But, at the same time, those two guys, man, you talk about great leaders and guys that really had command of what we were trying to do, and the efficiency in which they played with, man, I tell you, it was great.
All right, give me a good A.J. Mccarron story, behind the scenes. Because I've heard some, but I'm curious if you've got one up your sleeve for A.J. Mccarron.
Well, here's the one thing. I first of all, I absolutely, he was a competitor, and I love the fact all those guys. I mean, they're multi-sport guys. Both he and JP, were great baseball players.
Sure.
And they were guys that were just so ultra competitive, and that was really the one thing that stood out to me. And I kind of one of those guys that, I kind of try to keep all those stories between the two of us.
Sure.
And yet at the same time, I'm really excited about, both those guys, and obviously Greg as he's moved on in his profession, and just seeing those guys be successful, which you knew they would be from the get-go.
When you were here at Alabama and you're laying the foundation, when you see Alabama win one and then you guys are able to win two, and now it's kind of like it's almost automatic that Alabama's going to try to win a national title. What did you see in the early parts of the laying of the foundation? Because you were here to see the building blocks, and now we're talking, one of the greatest dynasties in the history of college football. What was it maybe that told you that this is going to be a success? I don't think anybody could project that, 5 championships in 9 years, but what a job, what a foundation you guys were able to build.
Well, I mean, it starts at the top, and obviously. was so fortunate to learn so many great things, from Coach Saban. And one of the things I think that he really did is dive into the recruiting piece and using, the resources available and really getting players that, his idea and his criteria of what makes a successful player in whatever position it is. I really think that's probably one of the things that built it. Obviously, getting some guys like Julio and Mark in the fold, and obviously those great linebackers and defensive players we had. I think when you look at that, really his first recruiting class, that he had a year to build on. The foundation, I think, was built with those guys. And more than anything, there was something about game day when you walked out of that tunnel and being part of the Crimson Tide. You just always knew, what, we're here to win. And that was instilled from Coach Saban.
Coach, final couple of questions here. We're talking to Coach Jim McElwain, Central Michigan's head coach, former Alabama offensive coordinator. When you go up against Coach Saban, being a former assistant coach, because you look at the SEC, it's built by a lot of former Nick Saban assistant coaches. Does that give you an advantage or a disadvantage because you know the way that he's going to operate?
I think it gives him a little more motivation.
Okay.
They got us pretty good. Obviously, went in there with a kind of a unmanned team there at Colorado State, and he put it on us pretty good. And then in both SEC championships when I was at Florida, he really put it on us. And yet, I think whether it gives you an advantage or a disadvantage, the one thing you do know is you're never going to play a team more well prepared than a Nick Saban football team, and not just offensively and defensively and special teams, but really from the overall program itself. It's awful hard to beat, and not many people have beaten it.
Coach, final question. When you look at college football and the NFL draft, one of your former bosses, Coach Jim Harbaugh, has come out with a statement today talking about some possibility of rules. And one of the things that he brings up is giving college football players that don't get drafted or don't get drafted at a certain spot to come back. Very similar to what you see in baseball, basketball, right, where they have an option. You've been around this game for a long time. Would that be something that would work? I mean, if you have players that declare, but then they see, hold on a minute, let me go back. Let me go back. I don't think I'm going to be drafted where I'm at. You see it working? Could it work in college football?
I certainly do. It's such a hard thing, and there's so much pressure on these guys, especially these high-profile recruits that you're dealing with, at an Alabama or Michigan, and the pressures of being 3 and done, and coming out. That's just kind of the expectation. And yet, I think the disappointment, in some cases when, they keep falling and fall farther in the draft, and knowing what they gave up and what they could have gained by having another year in college. The one thing in the National Football League that you never recover from is your original contract. You'll have a lot of these agents, getting these kids ear and say, "Oh, you'll make that up in your second contract." Well, the amount of guys in the league that actually get to a second contract is very small. So for these guys, I think if there was some way to put, that maybe there was a round cutoff. If a guy doesn't go in this, he's got the ability to come back. I think it'd be good, because I think it'd be good for the player. And then, you know what, they could still have that opportunity to say, "No, I'm okay. I'm good going in the fifth," or, no, maybe I should come back and maybe I can get a second round, third round, the next year. So I don't think it's crazy. I think it's something that would be good. And I know Coach Harbaugh, I haven't spent a year with him. He really thinks things out, and has some good reasoning. And I think that's another thing that he's looked at and makes sense.
Coach, thank you again for joining us. We wish nothing but the best to Central Michigan. We have a lot of people that pull for you. I think the close connections, I never forget when you came here as Colorado and you left, came back, and players stood, single file to get a chance to embrace you and to congratulate you and to see you have success. A lot of people here pull for you in Tuscaloosa. We greatly appreciate the conversation, and hopefully we can cross paths again very, very soon. Thank you, Coach, for making time for us this afternoon. Stay safe.
Yeah, thanks, and I really appreciate you taking time, and hello to all those great people. I tell you what, it's just unbelievable memories from the time we had there. So thanks so much, and you have a great day, and let's go get some more good news, but quit talking to those former players of mine, will you? They're giving away all my secrets.
Well, you come up quite often, and it just from guys like Mike Johnson, from Barrett Jones. I mean, we visit with those guys, and your name comes up quite often here in Tuscaloosa.
Well, thanks again, and you guys be great and roll tide.